Joining the conversation, veteran Newsweek magazine journalist and noted author Jonathan Alter, a columnist for the Daily Beast, political reporter for The Guardian, Sabrina Siddiqui is with us from Washington, and Hugh Hewitt, MSNBC political analyst and host of the appropriately named Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome to you all. Jonathan, we were talking before the break, and I was making the point that this can be a complicated business. There are many ways to bring people into the White House. You can bring them down the Northwest Gate, right down the driveway with a bank of cameras watching every move. They can come in West Exec Avenue. They can come in on the Ellipse. That's how first children have first sleepovers without all the families being exposed to the media. So what is this hubbub about specifically?
This is basically saying, on the part of the Trump administration, that the nation's business is nobody's business, and they can do whatever they want. They can let lobbyists into the building every day, and that we won't know about it until 5 years after Donald Trump leaves the presidency. So they're claiming that this is so that they can, you know, bring Supreme Court nominees in or bring national security people in if there's a crisis with some secrecy. But there were provisions for that.
There's always been an allowance for that.
There's always been a way to keep real things secret. This is just a smokescreen for more of what we've seen with Trump not releasing his taxes, just saying, none of your business, we'll do whatever we want. It's more Banana Republic stuff.
Sabrina, we did say on this broadcast last night, warning, we're heading into a holiday weekend for most Americans. Friday night is an ideal time to release a story, the coverage of which you're not going to like.
Absolutely, and this is an administration that has already faced a great deal of scrutiny when it comes to its commitment to transparency. As Jonathan mentioned, there's breaking with the 40-year precedent of releasing tax returns. That's something that we haven't seen from this president. And now it's not just about who comes in and out of the White House. It's about which individuals or groups might be trying to influence this administration on policy and giving the public a sense of who has the president's ear. Now, the Obama administration voluntarily released as many as 6 million names of visitors during his two-term presidency, and many times that didn't include scores of lobbyists, and it didn't always reflect well on his administration. But when it came to matters of security or judicial issues, then they did handle those on a case-by-case basis. So I think this is something that the president is receiving a lot of criticism from both sides on, so it's not just a partisan matter, and government watchdog groups I've spoken to said they expect to see him in court.
And Hugh Hewitt, it is how we learned how many lobbyists were crawling all over Obamacare initially. And I'll say this, tomorrow, traditional tax day, you're going to have marches in a lot of the cities in this country about transparency. The theme, trying to get Donald Trump to release his tax returns, trying to focus attention on that issue every day. And now this doesn't, the optics of this are not good.
I agree, Brian. I don't think this is a good decision. I've been thinking about it all afternoon. The only good reason to make this decision is to give President Trump the opportunity to reverse it quickly. And I don't understand the timing, even though it's classic Friday night dump. President Trump has found his footing in the last 2 weeks. Neil Gorsuch confirmation, a very successful summit with the NATO Secretary General, a very warm international welcome of his swift action in Syria. Jeff Sessions has, there was an LA Times story showing that 40% of the illegals crossing the border has declined. I think that General Mattis and General Dunford are got a strategy that's unfolding in real time. General McMaster on his way to Afghanistan. Why in the world, after 2 great weeks, do something that brings down criticism across, I think Sabrina noted, across the political spectrum?
And Hugh, let me ask the follow-up. What would it have hurt?
It couldn't. There are needs for secret meetings. There are some very famous secret meetings. I think the most famous one, John probably knows more about this than I do, John Scali of ABC News meeting with the KGB resident during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But they did that at the Willard Hotel, for goodness sake. So there's a need for secrecy, but you can always go off-site. And so I just don't understand this, Brian. It doesn't make any sense to me.
You know, there have been many examples of presidents secretly bringing people in to meet with them, and it's never a problem. What this is about at bottom is that Donald Trump doesn't believe he's answerable to anyone. And if you look over the course of his career, he never has. The idea of accountability is a foreign concept to him. And the problem is he's, in the presidency, it is an accountable office. You're accountable to the Congress, the courts, and in this case, to the public. Yeah. And if you don't have any of that sense of what's required of you, not by law, but by the norms of our constitutional system, you're operating at odds with that system.
So, Sabrina, if we've seen a migration to the mainstream even just this week in this West, it wasn't going to include this topic.
It wasn't, and actually I think that it could also be related to some degree because you are seeing the president adopt more mainstream Republican positions, and you see also individuals within his administration who are gaining in prominence, such as Gary Cohn, former Goldman Sachs executive who is the director of the National Economic Council in the White House. And it could be this component where he ran very much on draining the swamp, and perhaps he doesn't want the supporters who thought that he was going to rid the White House of the influence of lobbyists and Wall Street to see the people who are now coming in and out of the White House as he also evolves his positions on issues such as the Export-Import Bank and NATO and currency manipulation with respect to China.